The kitchen clock read 2:17 a.m. when I finally admitted to myself that my wife was screwing around. Not just cheating, screwing around like it was her full-time job, complete with benefits and a pension plan. My name's Evan Harper, and I fix cars for a living. 42 years old, hands permanently stained with motor oil, and apparently dumb enough to believe my wife Melissa when she said she was at a girls' wellness retreat in Portland. Funny thing about wellness retreats, they don't usually require lingerie shopping and birth control refills. I sat there in our cramped kitchen, scrolling through her social media on my phone. The posts were all there: yoga poses, green smoothies, inspirational quotes about finding yourself. But the timestamps were wrong. The geotags were wrong. Hell, even the lighting was wrong for Maine in October. "You work a 9 to 5, Evan," she'd said before leaving. "You can't afford my lifestyle." She was right about one thing. I couldn't afford her lifestyle. But she couldn't afford my patience either. And my patience had just filed for bankruptcy. The front door creaked open at 2:23 a.m. Melissa stumbled in, all flustered energy and guilt sweat, her hair looking like she'd been through a wind tunnel, or something else entirely. "Hey, babe," she whispered, dropping her purse by the door. "Didn't expect you to be up." "Funny thing about insomnia," I said, not looking up from my phone. "It gives you time to think and research." She froze halfway to the stairs. "Research?" I held up her phone, the one she'd forgotten in her car. The one I'd cloned 3 weeks ago, when her behavior started getting creative. "Your wellness retreat looks amazing, Mel. Especially the part where you and Tina are doing yoga with Chad Pennington at his townhouse. Very flexible positions." The color drained from her face like oil from a cracked pan. "Evan, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can. You always were good with stories. But I've got the director's cut right here." I swiped through the photos, the text messages, the videos. "Tina's got quite the mouth on her. And well, turns out you've been very busy finding yourself. Multiple times, multiple positions." Melissa's panic flipped to anger faster than a switch. "You spied on me? You violated my privacy?" "Privacy?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Honey, you posted half of this on social media. The other half, you texted to your accomplices. I just connected the dots." She crossed her arms, going full defensive. "You're boring, Evan. You come home, you watch TV, you fix cars. You never want to do anything exciting." "Exciting like screwing your friend's boyfriend? Or exciting like making videos in his hot tub while I'm working overtime to pay for your girls' trips?" "Chad's not Tina's boyfriend anymore. They broke up months ago." "Right, because he was too busy with you. And apparently, you were too busy with both of them to mention it." The house phone rang, cutting through the tension. Melissa's mother, right on schedule for her weekly guilt trip. I answered before Melissa could move. "Hi, Mrs. Patterson. No, she just got back from her retreat. Actually, she's going to need your couch for a while. The lease here isn't getting renewed." I hung up and looked at my wife. "Trip's canceled, Mel. And so is everything else." Monday morning came with the kind of October rain that makes Maine feel like the world's armpit. I was at Harper's Auto by 6 a.m., which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was how good I felt about dismantling my life piece by piece. "Boss, you're humming," said Lonnie, my apprentice mechanic. Kid was 22, built like a scarecrow, and loyal as a golden retriever. "You never hum." "New day, new attitude, Lonnie. Sometimes you gotta tear down the engine to build it better." I'd spent Sunday being very busy. Moved my stuff out of the house and into the apartment above the shop. Took my name off the lease. Emptied our joint checking account, legally, since my name was on it too. Canceled Melissa's credit cards, the ones I was paying for. And I'd made some phone calls. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Evan." "Yes, she's still your daughter." "No, I won't be contributing to her lifestyle anymore. You might want to stock up on wine." The best part was Melissa's car. A red BMW convertible that she loved more than she'd ever loved me. It was parked outside my shop with a big sign, "Under repair, indefinitely." Lonnie peered out the window. "That's Mrs. Harper's car, isn't it?" "Yep, she brought it in for some creative maintenance. Gonna take a while to get the parts." The parts being my dignity and self-respect, which weren't available at any auto supply store. Around noon, Tina Morrison showed up. 5'0" of bleached blonde fury in yoga pants and entitlement. She marched into my shop like she owned the place. "Evan Harper, you give Melissa her car back right now." I looked up from the engine I was working on. "Well, if it isn't the supporting actress. How's Chad these days?" Still got that rash? Her face went red. I don't know what you think you know. I know you've been playing both sides of this triangle, sweetheart. I know you set up half the meetings. I know you filmed some of them. And I know you're about as loyal as a politician in an election year. I wiped my hands on a rag and pulled out my phone. Hit play on a recording. Tina's voice came through crystal clear. He'll never figure it out. Evan's too busy with his little wrenches to notice anything. Besides, what's he gonna do? He's nobody. The real Tina went pale. You can't record people without their permission. Actually, in Maine, I can record any conversation I'm part of. And since this was on Melissa's phone, and I pay for Melissa's phone, I shrugged. Turns out I'm not as dumb as you thought. She tried to grab my phone. I held it up high, easy as swatting a mosquito. Here's what's gonna happen, Tina. You're gonna walk out of my shop. You're gonna stop calling me, stop texting me, and stop trying to clean up your mess. Because if you don't, this recording goes to your husband, and your boss, and that yoga instructor you've been telling everyone about. You wouldn't. Try me. She left without another word. Through the window, I watched her get into her car and make a phone call. Probably to Melissa, probably to Chad, definitely to someone who was about to have a very bad day. That evening, I headed to the Rusty Anchor. Every small town has a bar where everybody knows everybody's business. Maggie O'Brien ran ours. 60-something, tough as leather, and with a memory for gossip that would make the FBI jealous. Evan Harper, she said as I walked in. Heard you've been having some excitement. Word travels fast. Honey, in this town, word travels faster than bad seafood. Beer? Make it 2. It's been a long day. She poured 2 Budweisers and leaned across the bar. So, Melissa and the car dealer, how long you known? Few weeks. You? Few months. Half the town's been talking about it. Other half was waiting to see if you'd figure it out. Thanks for the heads up. You never asked. Besides, a man's got to learn these things for himself. Makes the lessons stick better. The door opened, and Chad Pennington walked in. 30-something, gym-tanned, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He looked around the bar like he was slumming it, then spotted me. Harper, we need to talk. Do we? I wasn't aware we had anything to discuss. He walked over, all swagger and cologne. You're going to stop harassing Melissa. You're going to give her the car back, and you're going to sign whatever papers she needs to move on with her life. Wittole, I took a sip of beer. Or what? Wittole edo, or I'll make things very uncomfortable for you. The bar went quiet. Maggie stopped wiping glasses. The 3 other customers turned to watch. Chad had made a mistake. He'd brought city attitude to a small-town fight. Chad, I said, standing up slowly. Can I call you Chad? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk out of here. You're going to stop seeing my wife. And you're going to pray I don't decide to get creative with your business practices. My business practices? Yeah, like how you're financing your lifestyle with advances from Melissa's real estate commissions. Or how your credit's maxed out on 3 different cards. Or how that BMW you're so proud of. It's about to get repossessed. His face went white. You can't know that. Wittole, small town, Chad. People talk. And when they talk to the right people, interesting things happen. Like repo companies getting anonymous tips about overdue payments. He took a swing at me. Clumsy, telegraphed, the kind of punch you throw when you're more angry than smart. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him into the bar. Then I patted him on the shoulder, gentle as a priest giving benediction. You're not even the main event, Slick. You're just the intermission. He left rubbing his shoulder and his ego. The bar erupted in laughter and applause. Maggie poured me another beer. Wittole, bat this end in Yawns on Juans, she said. That was better than cable TV. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. We need to talk, I texted back. No, we don't. Then I turned off my phone and enjoyed my beer. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. Tuesday brought news that Chad's BMW had been towed in the night. Wednesday brought word that Melissa had moved in with her mother. Thursday brought Tina's husband to my shop, asking questions about his wife's yoga classes. By Friday, I was starting to feel like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of chaos. Boss, Lonnie said, reading over my shoulder as I went through Melissa's text messages. This is better than those soap operas my mom watches. He wasn't wrong. The messages between Melissa, Tina, and Chad were like a masterclass in backstabbing. Melissa complaining about Chad being broke, Tina telling Chad that Melissa was using him, Chad telling both of them that he was exploring his options. But the real gold was in the group chat I'd found. Melissa, Tina, and someone named Rico, apparently Chad's best friend and part-time DJ. They'd been planning this for months, not just the affair, but the aftermath. How to get me out of the house, how to access my business accounts, how to make me look like the bad guy when everything fell apart. One message from Melissa made my blood run cold. Once we get him out, I can claim abuse. Emotional, maybe physical. Tina can back me up. Then I get the shop and the divorce. Another from Tina. Rico knows people who can make problems disappear. Just saying. I screenshot everything and sent copies to my friend Joe Martinez, who used to be a cop before he took a security job at the paper mill. Then I made some phone calls. Joe, it's Evan. I need a favor. What kind of favor? The kind where you remind me what constitutes a credible threat. An hour later, Joe was sitting in my shop, reading through the messages. His face got darker with each screen. Evan, this is serious. They're talking about framing you. And this Rico character, I know him. He's bad news. Drugs, intimidation, the works. What do I do? Document everything. Don't delete anything. And watch your back. People like this, when they get cornered, they get dangerous. That evening, I decided to test the waters. I drove to Chad's townhouse, the one he was apparently behind on payments for, and parked across the street. Sure enough, Melissa's car was there, the red BMW that was supposed to be in my shop. She'd had it towed. Probably cost her $300 she couldn't afford. I waited until they were inside, then walked around to the back of the building. Chad's garage was open, and his replacement car, a leased Mercedes that was probably costing him more than my mortgage, was sitting there like a gift from the revenge gods. I didn't vandalize it. I didn't key it or slash the tires. I just opened the hood and made a few adjustments. Loosened some connections, repositioned some wires. The kind of thing that would cause problems later, but not immediately. The kind of thing a mechanic might notice, but a car dealer wouldn't. Then I left a note under his windshield wiper. Mechanic's touch. Saturday morning, Maggie called me at the shop. You need to get down here, now. I found her behind the bar, grinning like she'd won the lottery. Your wife's mother called me. Seems there's been some developments in the Harper household drama. Such as Melissa finding out that Chad's been cheating on her. With Tina and Rico. Apparently your boy Chad swings both ways, and he's not particular about loyalty. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How did she find out? Anonymous tip. Someone sent her photos, very detailed photos. I hadn't sent any photos, which meant someone else was playing games. Maggie, who else knows about this situation? Honey, half the town knows. The other half's been living under rocks. Why? Because someone's stirring the pot, and it's not me. My phone rang. Melissa, crying so hard I could barely understand her. Evan, please, I need help. Chad, he's been with everyone. And Tina, she's been lying to me about everything. And my mother threw me out. I have nowhere to go. Where are you? The motel on Route 9, room 12. Please, Evan, I know I messed up, but I'm scared. I looked at Maggie. She shook her head. Don't do it, honey. This smells like a trap. But scared was something I understood. Desperate was something I recognized. And despite everything, Melissa was still my wife. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Evan, Maggie called as I headed for the door. Take Joe with you. The Sleepy Inn motel looked like the kind of place where dreams went to die. Peeling paint, broken neon sign, and the lingering smell of disappointment and disinfectant. Room 12 was at the far end, away from the road and the office. Joe met me in the parking lot. He'd brought his security uniform and his old service weapon, just in case. This feels wrong, he said, scanning the area. Too convenient, too neat, maybe, but if she's really in trouble, then we help her. But we do it smart. I knocked on the door. Melissa, it's Evan. The door opened, and my wife looked like hell. Makeup smeared, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes she'd had on 3 days ago. Behind her, I could see Tina sitting on the bed, looking guilty and defiant at the same time. Thank God you came, Melissa said, throwing her arms around me. I'm so sorry, Evan, about everything. I was stupid and selfish and... Where's Chad? I asked. Tina answered. Gone. He took off when the photos came out. Left us both high and dry. What photos? Melissa pulled out her phone and showed me. Chad with Rico. Chad with other women. Chad with other men. A whole gallery of infidelity that made my situation look quaint. Someone sent these to me yesterday, anonymous email, along with financial records showing he's been stealing from his dealership to pay for his lifestyle. I looked at the photos more carefully. They were professional quality. Too good for amateur surveillance. Who took these? We don't know, Tina said. But whoever it was, they've been watching him for weeks. Joe stepped into the room. Ladies, Evan, we need to talk. He closed the door behind him and turned to face us. I know who took those photos. Private investigator named Sarah Chen. She was hired 3 weeks ago to investigate Chad for embezzlement and fraud. Hired by who? I asked. His business partner. Turns out Chad's been running his own little side business, selling cars that don't exist, taking deposits on vehicles he never orders, using company credit to finance his personal expenses. The affair stuff was just bonus material. Melissa sank onto the bed next to Tina. So he was using me. He was using everyone, Joe said. But here's the interesting part. The investigator also found evidence that someone else was feeding Chad information about Evan's business, bank account numbers, customer lists, financial records. I felt the room go cold. What kind of information? The kind you'd need to steal someone's identity, or frame them for a crime. I looked at Melissa and Tina. Which one of you gave him access to my files? They looked at each other, then back at me. Tina cracked first. It was Melissa's idea. She said you'd never notice. She copied your passwords, your account information, everything. Chad was going to use it to make you look like you were embezzling from customers. Why? Melissa was crying again. Because I wanted out. I wanted a new life, and I thought if you looked bad enough, I could get everything in the divorce. Joe pulled out his phone. Sarah Chen also found something else. A plan to have Evan beaten up, make it look like an angry customer. Rico was supposed to arrange it. The room went silent except for the sound of Melissa sobbing. Where's Rico now? I asked. That's the million-dollar question, Joe said. He disappeared the same time Chad did, but his car's still at Chad's townhouse. I stood up and walked to the window. The parking lot was empty except for our cars and a maintenance truck. Too empty for a Saturday afternoon. Joe, we need to leave. Now. Why? Because this isn't a coincidence. Melissa calling me here, Tina being here, Rico disappearing. Someone setting up a meeting. As if on cue, 2 cars pulled into the parking lot. Chad's Mercedes and a black pickup truck. 4 men got out, including Chad and Rico. Back door, Joe said, pulling out his weapon. Now. But the back door was already blocked. 2 more men, both carrying baseball bats. We were trapped. Chad knocked on the door like he owned the place. Melissa, honey, open up. We need to talk. Joe positioned himself by the window, gun drawn but hidden. I moved to the door, motioning for Melissa and Tina to get behind the bed. What do you want, Chad? I want to make a deal, Evan. You give me back my life, I give you back yours. Your life was built on lies and theft. Why would I want to preserve that? Because if you don't, things are going to get very unpleasant for everyone involved. Through the window I could see Rico and the other men spreading out around the motel room. Professional positions, like they'd done this before. Here's my counteroffer, I called through the door. You and your friends drive away now, and I don't call the police about the embezzlement, the fraud, and the conspiracy to commit assault. Chad laughed. You think anyone's going to believe you? A small-town mechanic against a successful businessman. Please. Actually, said a new voice, they're going to believe the FBI. A woman in a dark suit stepped out from behind the maintenance truck, followed by 4 agents in tactical gear. The men around Chad suddenly found themselves looking down the barrels of federal weapons. Chad Pennington. You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Rico Martinez. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault and drug trafficking. The takedown was swift and professional. Chad tried to run and made it about 10 feet before being tackled. Rico just put his hands up and started talking immediately. The woman in the suit knocked on our door. Mr. Harper. Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. We need to talk. Joe holstered his weapon and opened the door. Agent Chen. Didn't expect to see you here. Mr. Martinez. Small world. She looked at me. Mr. Harper. We've been investigating Mr. Pennington for 6 months. Your wife's activities provided us with additional evidence of his criminal enterprise. My wife was working with you? Melissa stood up from behind the bed, no longer crying, no longer looking helpless. Not exactly working with them. But when I realized what Chad was really doing, I made a deal. Agent Chen nodded. Mrs. Harper contacted us 3 weeks ago when she discovered that Mr. Pennington was using her real estate connections to launder money. She agreed to help us gather evidence in exchange for immunity from prosecution. I stared at my wife. So the affair was fake. The affair was real, Melissa said quietly. I really did cheat on you, Evan. I really was planning to leave you. But when I found out Chad was a criminal, I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. Tina? Tina raised her hand like a guilty student. Also real, also stupid, also very sorry. Agent Chen cleared her throat. Mr. Harper, we need to ask you about your business records. Mr. Pennington claims you were involved in his money laundering operation. I wasn't. We know, but we need your help to prove it. He used your shop's reputation to legitimize some of his transactions, made it look like you were servicing vehicles that didn't exist. Joe stepped forward. What kind of help? Testimony, financial records, and possibly some undercover work. I looked around the motel room, at my cheating wife who'd turned FBI informant, at her partner in adultery who was now a federal witness, at my ex-cop friend who was apparently on a first-name basis with federal agents. This is insane. This is justice, Agent Chen said. Mr. Pennington and his associates have been running this scam in 3 states. They've stolen over $2 million from victims. Your wife's information helped us connect the dots. And what happens to me? That depends on you. And her. She nodded toward Melissa. Melissa walked over to me, slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. Evan, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I broke everything between us, but I want to make it right. How? By telling the truth about everything. In court, to the FBI, to anyone who will listen. Chad used me, but I let him. I betrayed you, but I want to fix it. I looked at her for a long moment. 3 months ago, she'd been planning to frame me for abuse. 2 weeks ago, she'd been conspiring to steal my business. Yesterday, she'd been crying in a motel room. Today, she was offering to help send her criminal boyfriend to federal prison. What about us? I asked. I don't know. I hope maybe we can figure that out. After all this is over, Agent Chen interrupted. Mr. Harper, we need an answer. Will you help us? I thought about Chad's arrogance, about Rico's threats, about the plan to have me beaten up, about the $2 million they'd stolen from people who probably worked as hard as I did and had even less to show for it. Yeah, I said, I'll help you. Good. Because we're going to need you to wear a wire. The wire was smaller than I'd expected. A tiny microphone taped to my chest, with a transmitter the size of a matchbook clipped to my belt. Agent Chen assured me it was undetectable, but I felt like I was wearing a neon sign. Just act natural, she said as we sat in the FBI surveillance van outside Chad's dealership. Get him talking about the money, the fake transactions, anything that connects him to the fraud. What if he gets suspicious? He won't. According to your wife, he thinks you're an idiot. Thanks, Melissa. The plan was simple. I would go into Chad's dealership pretending to be interested in buying a car. Chad, thinking he was smarter than me, would try to rope me into his money laundering scheme. The FBI would record everything, and Chad would go to prison for a very long time. What could go wrong? Everything, as it turned out. Chad wasn't at the dealership. According to his sales manager, he'd left town that morning after posting bail. Destination unknown. He cleaned out his office, the manager told me. Took his computer, his files, everything. Left me a note saying the business was mine now. Problem is, there's no inventory left to sell. Neville Beichmund, Agent Chen's voice crackled in my earpiece. Get out of there. We'll regroup. But as I walked toward the exit, I saw a familiar car in the service bay. My wife's red BMW, the one that had been stolen from my shop. Excuse me, I called to the mechanic working on it. Whose car is that? Belongs to some lady named Melissa Harper. She brought it in this morning, said her husband had sabotaged it. Wanted us to fix it and bill her insurance company for vandalism. I felt my blood pressure spike. Even now, even after everything, she was still trying to scam me. Actually, I said, I'm her husband, and that's my repair work you're undoing. The mechanic looked confused. Your work? Yeah. I loosened the alternator belt, disconnected the battery cable, and put sugar in the gas tank. Standard procedure for cheating wives. You can't put sugar in a gas tank. That's a myth. I know, but she doesn't. Agent Chen's voice in my ear. Evan, what are you doing? What I was doing was getting an idea. A terrible, wonderful, completely illegal idea. Tell you what, I said to the mechanic. I'll take the car off your hands. Save everyone some trouble. I can't do that. It's not your car anymore. Actually, it is. I pulled out my phone and showed him the registration. See, both our names are on the title. I can take it any time I want. Which was technically true. What wasn't true was that I had any intention of returning it to Melissa in working condition. 20 minutes later, I was driving the BMW back to my shop, with Agent Chen screaming in my earpiece about protocol and evidence tampering. Evan, you need to return that vehicle immediately. Can't hear you, I said, pulling the earpiece out. Bad connection. Back at my shop, I put the BMW up on the lift and really went to work. Not vandalism, I'm a professional, but creative mechanical interpretation. The kind of repairs that would pass inspection but make the car's life very interesting. Loose lug nuts that would need constant attention. A radiator flush with a slow leak that would cause overheating in traffic. An oil change with the wrong viscosity that would make the engine sound like a cement mixer. And my personal favorite, a small modification to the exhaust system that would make the car backfire every time she hit the brakes. I was just finishing up when Melissa walked in. Evan, we need to talk. Do we? I thought you were busy helping the FBI catch criminals. How'd that work out, by the way? Chad's gone, he skipped bail and disappeared. The FBI thinks he's in Mexico. Shame. I was looking forward to seeing him in an orange jumpsuit. She looked around the shop, taking in the tools, the cars, the life she'd been so eager to leave behind. I know you're angry. Angry? Mel, I'm past angry. I'm into a whole new emotional territory. There's no word for what I am. I'm sorry. For which part? The cheating? The lying? The planning to frame me for abuse? Or the insurance fraud you tried to pull this morning? Her face fell. You know about that? I know about everything. I've always known about everything. The difference is, now I don't care. I walked over to her car and patted the hood. She's all fixed up, runs like a dream. Well, like a very specific kind of dream. What did you do? Nothing illegal, nothing permanent, nothing that can't be fixed by a competent mechanic, which, fortunately for you, you happen to be married to. Are we still married? I looked at her for a long moment. 3 months ago, I would have said yes without thinking. 2 weeks ago, I would have said no without hesitation. Today, I honestly didn't know. That depends. On what? On whether you can live with the consequences of your choices. All of them. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. Yeah, you do. Agent Chen walked into the shop, looking frustrated and official. Mr. Harper, we need to discuss your actions today. What actions? I picked up my car from an unauthorized repair shop. Last I checked, that wasn't a federal crime. You compromised an ongoing investigation. No, Chad compromised an ongoing investigation when he skipped bail. I just retrieved my property. She looked at Melissa. Mrs. Harper, your husband's cooperation is no longer required. The case against Mr. Pennington will proceed based on the evidence we've already gathered. What about Rico? Mr. Martinez is cooperating fully. In exchange for testimony against Mr. Pennington and his other associates, he'll serve 18 months in federal prison. And Tina? Miss Murrison will receive probation and community service. She's agreed to testify as well. Agent Chen turned back to me. Mr. Harper, I want to be clear. If you interfere with this investigation again, you will be charged with obstruction of justice. Understood. But I'm done with your investigation. Chad's your problem now. Nah, she left, taking her federal authority and her empty threats with her. Melissa and I stood in the shop, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and the sound of Lonnie working in the back. So what happens now? She asked. Now you drive your car home, carefully, and you think about what kind of person you want to be. And us? There is no us, Mel. There's you, and there's me, and there's a whole lot of damage in between. Maybe someday we can fix it. Maybe we can't. But right now, I need you to leave. She nodded and walked toward her car. Then she stopped and turned back. Evan? For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know you are. That's the only reason you're driving out of here instead of walking. She got in the BMW and started it up. The engine sounded perfect, for now. As she pulled out of the parking lot, I heard the first backfire, then another. By the time she reached the main road, it sounded like the 4th of July. Lonnie came out of the back, grinning. Boss, that was beautiful. What did you do? Just a little creative maintenance. Nothing she can't fix. Think she'll be back? I watched the red BMW disappear around the corner, backfiring like a machine gun. Yeah, she'll be back. They always come back when they need something fixed. And will you fix it? I thought about that for a moment. About forgiveness and consequences. About second chances and the price of betrayal. about the difference between justice and revenge. Maybe, I said finally, but it's gonna cost her. 6 months later, Chad Pennington was arrested in Cabo San Lucas and extradited to face federal charges. Rico Martinez testified against him and served his 18 months. Tina Morrison moved to Florida and started a new life selling timeshares. And Melissa? She kept the BMW for 3 weeks before the constant backfiring drove her crazy. She brought it back to my shop on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, humble and broke, and asking for help. I fixed her car, and then I fixed her life. And eventually, slowly, carefully, we started fixing us. But that's another story. This one ends here, in my shop, with the sound of honest work, and the smell of motor oil, and the satisfaction that comes from knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win, even when the good guy is just a small-town mechanic who knows how to use a wrench.